What's the darkest secret you discovered about your dead parent? Watching my mother forgive the hammered driver who killed my father. Except she wasn't hammered, and it wasn't an accident. We found out 3 years later when my mom was cleaning out Dad's old office. Hidden in a locked drawer were medical records, brain scans, doctor's notes, test results. Dad had been diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor 6 months before he died, terminal. He had maybe 2 months left, and those months would have been agony. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the letter underneath, in Dad's handwriting. Thank you for agreeing to this. My family will never forgive you, but you're giving me the gift of dying as myself, not as a shell in a hospital bed. The money is in the account we discussed. My mom's hands were shaking as she showed me. We drove straight to the woman's house, the hammered driver who'd served 2 years for manslaughter. She opened the door, saw us, and immediately started crying. He made me promise never to tell, she sobbed. He said it was the only way the insurance would pay out for you. If he died from the tumor, you'd get nothing but an accident. She wasn't hammered that night. She'd had 1 beer hours earlier, just enough to register on a breathalyzer, just enough to make it believable. Dad had orchestrated everything, even making sure our dog would survive. He'd paid her to take a fall, knowing she needed money for her own daughter's cancer treatment. I wanted to tell you so many times, she said, especially during the trial, but he made me swear. He said if I broke my promise, he'd haunt me forever. She laughed through her tears. I think he meant it. My mom sat in silence for a long time, but forever. She laughed through her tears. I think he meant it. My mom sat in silence for a long time, then she asked the question that changed everything. How much did he pay you? 300,000. The woman whispered. It saved my daughter's life. That's when I realized what true emotional maturity looked like. My mom could have been furious at Dad for lying, at this woman for agreeing, at the universe for taking Dad either way. Instead, she reached across the table and took the woman's hands. Then we both lost someone we loved, and we both saved someone we loved, Mom said. He would have wanted us to be friends. But here's where it gets complicated. Last week, the woman called us panicking, said someone had been following her, asking questions about that night. Yesterday, we found out who, Dad's former business partner, who thought he'd inherit everything after Dad's death. He's convinced there's more to the story, and he's right because we just discovered Dad had another account, one with 10 times what he paid the woman, the withdrawal date, the day before he died. The next morning, Mom and I sat at the kitchen table staring at Dad's bank statements. The numbers didn't make sense. $3 million transferred to an offshore account the day before his death. Mom's coffee went cold as she traced the transaction with her finger. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a man in an expensive suit holding a briefcase. Marcus Chen, Dad's former business partner, the one the woman had warned us about. Mom opened the door before I could stop her. Helen, Marcus said, his smile not reaching his eyes. We need to talk about your husband's estate. He pushed past us into the living room, setting his briefcase on our coffee table like he owned the place. His fingers drummed against the leather as he looked around, taking inventory of our home. I know about the woman, he said. The supposed hammered driver. Clever of Robert, but not clever enough. Mom's face remained calm, but I saw her hands clench in her lap. Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Your husband and I had an agreement. In the event of his death, his share of our investments would transfer to me, but there's $3 million missing from the accounts. We don't know anything about that, Mom said. Really? Marcus leaned back studying us. Because I think Robert told you exactly where that money went, and I think you're going to tell me. I stood up. You need to leave. Marcus didn't move. Move. Sit down, kid. You have no idea what your father was involved in. That money, it wasn't just his. We had investors, people who don't take kindly to being cheated. Dad didn't cheat anyone? I said, no? Then where's the money? Marcus's voice hardened. I've been patient. 3 years, I've been patient. Thinking maybe Robert hid it somewhere, waiting for the heat to die down. But then I found out about his little arrangement with that woman. He pulled out his phone and showed us a photo. The woman who'd helped Dad coming out of a grocery store. My stomach dropped. I've been watching her, Marcus said, following her. She's nervous, scared. Eventually, she'll crack and tell me what she knows. Leave her alone, Mom said, her voice steady but firm. She's been through enough. That's up to you. Marcus stood straightening his tie. You have 48 hours to tell me where the money is. After that, I'll have to get creative. After he left, Mom locked the door and leaned against it. We called the woman immediately, told her to stay with friends for a few days. Then we went back to Dad's office searching for anything we'd missed. In a hidden compartment behind his bookshelf, we found another letter. This one was addressed to Marcus. If you're reading this, it began, then you've discovered the money is gone. You always were predictable, Marcus, greedy and predictable. The letter detailed how Marcus had been embezzling from their company for years, skimming from client accounts. Dad had discovered it 6 months before his diagnosis. The $3 million? It was what Marcus had stolen, carefully documented, and transferred to protect their clients. The evidence is with my lawyer, the letter continued. If anything happens to my family or to the woman who helped me, it will be released to the authorities. Consider this your only warning. But when we called Dad's lawyer, his secretary said he'd retired last year. Moved to Florida. No forwarding information. Marcus called that night. Tick-tock, he said before hanging up. The next day, we found our mailbox smashed, our car tires slashed. Small intimidations, but the message was clear. Mom wanted to go to the police, but we both knew Marcus was right about one thing. If Dad had taken money that wasn't his, even to protect it from Marcus, we could all be in trouble. I spent hours going through Dad's computer files looking for any clue about where he'd hidden the evidence. Mom contacted Dad's old secretary, his golf buddies, anyone who might know something. Nothing. The woman called us crying. Someone had broken into her apartment while she was out. Nothing stolen, but everything was searched. Her daughter's photos were arranged on her bed in a pattern that spelled out where. That's when I remembered something. Dad used to take me to this old storage unit when I was younger, said it was where he kept boring work stuff. I hadn't thought about it in years. Mom and I drove there that night. Unit 47B paid up for 10 years in advance according to the manager. Inside, we found boxes of financial records, client files, and a safety deposit box key taped to the bottom of a filing cabinet. The next morning, we went to the bank. The safety deposit box contained everything. Records of Marcus's embezzlement, forged signatures, falsified accounts, and a video confession from Dad recorded just days before his death explaining everything. But there was more. The $3 million hadn't just disappeared. Dad had returned it to every client Marcus had stolen from anonymously, making it look like accounting errors corrected. The transfers were irreversible, the money already distributed and spent. Marcus was waiting at our house when we got back. He'd let himself in somehow, was sitting in Dad's old chair like he belonged there. "Time's up," he said. "Where's my money?" That's when Mom did something I'll never forget. She smiled. Not her usual warm smile, but something harder. Something that reminded me of Dad when he was closing a big deal. "It's gone," she said. "Robert gave it all back to the people you stole from. Every penny." Marcus's face went white. "You're lying." Mom set the evidence on the table. "We have copies, lots of copies. Some with the FBI, some with the state attorney's office, some with journalists who would love this story." "You're bluffing." "Call my bluff," Mom said. "But know this, the moment anything happens to us or to that woman, this all goes public. Your reputation, your business, your freedom, all gone." Marcus stood slowly, his hands shaking. "Your husband destroyed me." "No," Mom said. "You destroyed yourself. Robert just made sure you couldn't destroy anyone else." After Marcus left, we sat in silence for a long time. The woman came over later and we showed her everything. She cried again, but this time from relief. "He really did think of everything," she said. "Not everything," Mom said, looking at Dad's photo on the mantel. "He didn't think about how much we'd miss him." Over the next few days, we watched Marcus's world crumble. His investors pulled out, his clients left. Without the stolen money to cover his tracks, his fraud became obvious. He fled the state before charges could be filed. The woman and her daughter started coming over for dinner. Turns out her daughter and I had a lot in common. Both of us saved by our parents' sacrifices. Both of us learning to live with complicated truths. Mom was right that day. We'd both lost someone we loved, and we'd both saved someone we loved. Dad would have wanted us to be friends. More than that, he'd have wanted us to be family. And in his own complicated, secretive way, that's exactly what he'd given us. The peaceful dinners with the woman and her daughter lasted exactly 1 week. Then Marcus started getting creative. It began with my job. My supervisor pulled me aside during my shift at the bookstore looking uncomfortable. She explained that someone had called claiming I'd stolen money from the register. "Anonymous tip," she said, "but they had to investigate." I knew it was Marcus before she even finished talking. Mom's workplace got a similar call. Her real estate office received complaints about fraudulent listings, forged signatures on contracts, all anonymous, all impossible to trace. Her boss, who'd known her for 15 years, apologized but said he had to suspend her pending investigation. The woman lost her job at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Someone had recorded her criminal record, questioning whether someone convicted of manslaughter should be caring for patients. Never mind that she'd disclosed everything when hired. Never mind that she'd been an exemplary employee for 2 years since her release. We met at Mom's house that evening, the three of us trying to figure out our next move. The woman's daughter, Victoria, was at a friend's house. We'd been careful to keep her away from all this. Mom spread Dad's evidence across the dining table again. Bank records, emails, transaction histories, everything proving Marcus had stolen from clients. But something bothered me. Dad had been meticulous about everything else. Why leave the evidence with a lawyer who'd disappear? I started going through Dad's old appointment books, cross-referencing dates. The lawyer, Nathan Joney, had been Dad's attorney for 20 years. His sudden retirement right after Dad's death seemed too convenient. Mom made calls to other lawyers in town asking about Nathan. Most hadn't heard from him, but one mentioned something interesting. Nathan had sold his practice to a firm that Marcus had connections to. The pieces started falling into place. The woman suggested we search for Nathan ourselves. If Marcus had gotten to him, maybe we could convince him to help us, but finding someone who didn't want to be found wouldn't be easy. I spent the next 3 days calling every Nathan Joney in Florida. Most numbers were disconnected. The few that answered weren't our Nathan. Mom tried social media, professional networks, nothing. The woman checked nursing home directories, retirement communities, still nothing. Marcus kept the pressure on. My bank called about suspicious activity on my account. Several large deposits and withdrawals I hadn't made. The bank froze my funds pending investigation. Mom's mortgage company received an anonymous tip about income fraud. The woman's landlord got a call suggesting she was using her apartment for illegal activities. We were running out of time and options. That's when Victoria, the woman's daughter, surprised us all. She'd overheard us talking and had an idea. What if Nathan hadn't moved to Florida at all? What if that was just what he wanted people to think? It was so simple we'd overlooked it. We'd been searching far away when he might be hiding close by. Victoria remembered seeing him at the farmer's market a few months ago. Her mom had pointed him out, warning her to avoid him because of the trial connection. We spent the next morning at the farmer's market, walking through crowds, scanning faces, nothing. But as we were leaving, I spotted a familiar figure at the coffee shop across the street. Older, grayer, but definitely Nathan Joney. Mom approached him carefully. He saw her coming and tried to leave, but she called his name. He stopped, shoulders sagging. We sat in a quiet corner of the coffee shop. Nathan looked exhausted, defeated. He admitted Marcus had threatened him after Dad's death, told him to disappear or face consequences. Nathan had been hiding in plain sight, living under his middle name, working part-time at a hardware store. Mom showed him the evidence we'd found. Nathan's hands shook as he read through it. He confirmed what we'd suspected. Dad had given him everything, but Marcus had gotten to him first, threatened his grandchildren. Nathan had no choice but to hand it over and disappear, but Nathan had kept copies hidden in a safety deposit box under his middle name. He'd been too scared to do anything with them, but seeing us, knowing we were fighting back, gave him courage. We went to his bank together. The safety deposit box contained everything Dad had documented, plus more. Nathan had added his own records of Marcus's threats, recorded conversations, proof of intimidation. It was enough to bury Marcus completely, but Marcus wasn't done with us. When we got back to Mom's house, we found the front door open. Nothing was stolen, but everything was searched, cushions slashed, drawers emptied, even family photos removed from frames. A message was spray-painted on the living room wall. Last chance. The woman grabbed my arm, her daughter. We raced to the friend's house where Victoria was staying. She was safe, but scared. Her friend's parents said a man in an expensive suit had come by asking questions. They'd sent him away, but he'd sat in his car outside for an hour before leaving. We couldn't wait any longer. Mom wanted to take everything to the police immediately, but I remembered something Dad used to say about Marcus. He was connected, had friends in useful places. We needed to be smarter. Nathan suggested we make copies of everything first, multiple copies. He knew a journalist who'd been investigating financial fraud in the area. We could give her the story, make it public before Marcus could bury it. We spent that night at an all-night copy shop making dozens of copies of every document. Nathan called his journalist contact, arranged a meeting for the next morning. The woman and Victoria stayed with us. Safety in numbers. Marcus called Mom's phone at 3 a.m. She put it on speaker. His voice was calm, controlled, but I could hear the edge underneath. "Helen, let's be reasonable. Robert took something that wasn't his. I just want it back. No one else needs to get hurt. You're the one who stole from clients," Mom said. Robert was protecting them. Robert was a fool. He could have had everything. We both could have. Instead, he chose to play hero. He chose to do the right thing. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. The right thing? He destroyed my life over the right thing? You have no idea what you're dealing with, Helen. This goes deeper than you know. Then tell me, Mom said. Make me understand. There was a long pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was different. Tired. Your husband and I built that company from nothing. 20 years of work? Then he gets sick and decides to develop a conscience? He had no right. You had no right to steal from clients, Mom shot back. Those clients were sheep. They'd have lost that money anyway. At least with me, they got returns for years before I took my share. Your share? You stole millions. I earned those millions. While Robert was playing family man, I was working 100-hour weeks. I deserved compensation. Mom's voice hardened. You deserved prison, and that's where you're going. Marcus's calm shattered. You think you've won? You think your husband's little plan protected you? I know people, Helen. People who don't care about evidence or journalists or police. You have 24 hours to return my money or you'll learn what real loss feels like. The line went dead. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, we met the journalist at a diner outside town. She reviewed the evidence, asked questions, took notes. She promised to run the story within days, but we needed to stay safe until then. Nathan offered his cabin in the mountains. It was isolated, but that meant we'd see anyone coming. We packed quickly, only essentials. As we loaded the cars, I noticed a black sedan parked down the street. It had been there all night. We left in 3 separate cars taking different routes. The plan was to meet at the cabin by noon. Mom and I went first. The woman and Victoria took Nathan's car, and Nathan drove separately with the evidence. The mountain roads were winding, narrow. I kept checking the mirrors, watching for that black sedan. About halfway up, I spotted it, following at a distance, but definitely following. Mom saw it too. She took a sudden turn onto a side road, then another. The sedan fell back, but didn't lose us completely. We were being herded, I realized, pushed towards somewhere specific. The road ended at an old quarry. No way forward. Steep drops on both sides. Mom stopped the car, engine still running. The black sedan pulled up behind us, blocking our escape. But it wasn't Marcus who got out. It was a woman, middle-aged, professional-looking. She approached Mom's window, hands visible, non-threatening. "Mrs. Chen, my name is Sam Maximantha. I'm a federal investigator. We've been watching Marcus for months. We need to talk." Mom kept her hands on the wheel. "How do I know you're really federal?" Sam produced credentials. Let Mom examine them. They looked real, but we'd learned not to trust easily. Sam seemed to understand. Your husband contacted us before he died, she said. Sent us information about Marcus's activities. We've been building a case, but we needed more evidence. What you found in that storage unit, what Nathan Joni has, it's the missing piece. Why didn't you contact us sooner? I asked. We couldn't risk Marcus finding out. He has connections, informants. We needed him to expose himself, make mistakes. Your pressure on him did that. Mom studied Sam's face. What do you want from us? Your cooperation, the evidence, testimony if needed. In exchange, we can protect you, all of you. It sounded too convenient. Another twist in a story full of them, but what choice did we have? Marcus's 24-hour deadline was ticking down. We followed Sam to a federal building in the city. Real agents, real offices. They'd been tracking Marcus's financial crimes for 2 years. Dad's information had started their investigation, but he died before he could testify. They showed us surveillance photos, Marcus meeting with various people, exchanging packages, making deals. He wasn't just embezzling. He was laundering money for others using the company as a front. The agent in charge explained their plan. They needed us to meet with Marcus, get him to admit to the embezzlement on tape. With that confession plus the evidence, they could arrest him immediately. Mom refused at first. Too dangerous, but they assured us we'd be protected. Agents would be watching, listening. The moment we had what we needed, they'd move in. We spent hours preparing. What to say, how to act, where to meet. The agents suggested Mom's house. Familiar territory for us, but Marcus would feel confident there. Overconfident, hopefully. That evening, Mom called Marcus, told him she was ready to talk to work out a deal. He agreed to come over at 9 alone, he insisted. Just him and Mom. The agents set up surveillance equipment throughout the house. Tiny cameras, hidden microphones, unmarked vans on the street. We had a panic button if things went wrong. Nathan arrived with the woman and Victoria just before 9. The agents had brought them in for protection. We waited in the back room, watching monitors, listening. Marcus arrived exactly at 9. He looked tired, older than when I'd last seen him. He sat in Dad's chair again, that same possessive gesture. Mom offered him coffee. He declined. They sat across from each other, the coffee table between them like a battlefield. Where's my money, Helen? Marcus started. Gone, Mom said simply. Robert returned it to the clients you stole from. Marcus's jaw tightened. That money was mine. I earned it. By stealing? By being smart. Your husband never understood business. Always too worried about ethics, about doing the right thing. It made him weak. Mom leaned forward. It made him better than you. Better? He's dead, Helen. I'm still here. Who's better off? His conscience was clear. Can you say the same? Marcus laughed bitterly. Conscience doesn't pay bills, doesn't build empires. Your husband could have been rich. Instead, he chose to be righteous. Look where it got him. Tell me about the embezzlement, Mom said, pushing carefully. Help me understand why you did it. Marcus studied her, suspicious, but his ego won out. He wanted her to understand, to validate his choices. It started small, he began. Skimming from accounts that were dormant, clients who'd forgotten about investments. They weren't using the money. I was. How much? A few thousand at first, then more. The 2008 crash provided cover. Losses everywhere. Easy to hide a little extra loss here and there. But 3 million? Over 10 years? That's nothing. The company made 10 times that. I deserved my share. Your share was your salary. Your legitimate profits. Legitimate. Marcus Scott. You want to know what's legitimate? I brought in 90% of our clients. I made the deals that built the company. Robert handled paperwork. I handled power. Mom kept him talking, drawing out details. Marcus grew more animated, more careless. He admitted to forging signatures, creating fake accounts, moving money through shell companies. The agents were getting everything. Then Marcus's phone rang. He looked at it, frowned, answered despite Mom's protest. His face changed as he listened, went pale, then red. He hung up and stood abruptly. You set me up, he said, voice deadly quiet. That was my contact at the federal building. They're preparing arrest warrants. Mom stood too, hand moving toward the panic button. But Marcus was faster. He grabbed her wrist, twisted. Not enough to break, but enough to hurt. Where are the others? He demanded. Your son? That woman? Where are they? I started to move, but Nathan held me back. The agents would handle it any second now. But Marcus was already pulling Mom toward the door. We're leaving. You're going to get me that evidence, all of it. Then you're going to call off your federal friends. I can't call them off, Mom said, struggling. It's too late. Then you better hope your son can, because if I go down, I'm taking all of you with me. He reached the front door, yanked it open, and found himself facing a dozen federal agents, weapons drawn. Marcus Chen, Sam Maximantha said, stepping forward. You're under arrest for embezzlement, money laundering, and assault. Marcus released Mom, raised his hand slowly, but his eyes found mine through the doorway. The look he gave me was pure venom. Your father would be ashamed, he said as they cuffed him. Destroying everything we built, everything he worked for. No, I said, finding my voice. He'd be proud. We finished what he started. They led Marcus away into a waiting car. The neighbors had come out watching the spectacle. Tomorrow it would be gossip. Next week, old news. But for us, it was closure. We spent the next few hours giving statements, signing documents. The agent said Marcus would likely plea bargain, but he'd serve time. His assets would be frozen, investigated. Any money recovered would go back to the victims. It was nearly dawn when we finally got home. Mom made coffee while we sat around the kitchen table. The woman held Victoria close. Nathan looked older but somehow lighter. The weight of secrets finally lifted. "What happens now?" the woman asked. Mom smiled, that warm smile I'd missed during all this chaos. "Now we heal. We move forward. We become the family Robert wanted us to be." Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to normal. The investigations cleared our names. We got our jobs back with apologies. Marcus's company was dissolved, assets distributed to victims. It wasn't everything he'd stolen, but it was something. Nathan came out of hiding, reopened a small practice. He helped us set up a trust with Dad's life insurance money. Part went to the woman in Victoria, a gift from Dad to the family who'd helped him. The rest went to brain cancer research. The woman and her daughter became regular fixtures in our lives. Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, random Tuesday movie nights. Victoria and I grew close, bonded by our strange connection. 2 kids saved by the parents' sacrifice. Mom and sacrifice. Mom and the woman became best friends, just as Dad had predicted. They started a support group for families dealing with terminal illness and impossible choices, a place where people could share without judgment. One evening, as we all sat around the dinner table, Victoria asked the question we'd all been thinking. "Do you think he knew? Your dad? Do you think he knew it would all work out like this?" Mom reached over, squeezed her hand. "I think he hoped. He couldn't control everything, but he gave us the tools to fight. The rest was up to us. He gave us each other," the woman added. "That was his real gift." I thought about Dad then, not the man who'd lied and schemed and orchestrated his own death, but the man who'd loved us enough to try to protect us even from beyond the grave. He wasn't perfect. His plan wasn't perfect, but his love was. Marcus had been wrong about him. Dad wasn't weak because he cared about ethics. He was strong because he acted on them even when it cost him everything. He'd seen Marcus's corruption and couldn't ignore it, couldn't let innocent people suffer for his partner's greed. So he'd spent his last month setting things right, returning stolen money, gathering evidence, protecting his family. And when he knew his time was running out, he'd made one last sacrifice, one that would haunt the woman who helped him but save his family from poverty. It wasn't a perfect plan. It caused pain, sent an innocent woman to prison, left us with questions and guilt, but it was the best he could do with the time he had left. And in the end, it brought us together. Marcus was sentenced to 12 years. He'd served maybe 8 with good behavior. His connections couldn't save him once the evidence went public. The journalist won awards for her exposé on financial fraud and small investment testified at the trial, finally free from fear. But the real victory wasn't Marcus's conviction. It was the family we'd become, born from tragedy, forged through adversity, bonded by love and sacrifice. Dad would have been proud. Sometimes I still dream about that night. The accident that wasn't an accident. The hammered driver who wasn't hammered. The death that was really a goodbye. But now I understand what Dad was trying to tell us. Life is messy. People make impossible choices. Love sometimes looks like betrayal. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, means accepting all of someone, not just the parts that are easy to love. Mom kept Dad's last letter, the one explaining everything. She framed it, hung it in the hallway next to family photos. Visitors sometimes asked about it, but we rarely explained. It was our story, our truth, our complicated love. The woman and Victoria moved closer, just a few blocks away. We saw them almost daily. Victoria started calling Mom Aunt Helen. The woman became simply family. No explanation needed. One night, as we cleaned up after dinner, the woman pulled me aside. "I need to tell you something," she said. "About that night. About your dad." My stomach clenched. "More secrets? More revelations?" "He talked about you constantly in those last weeks," she continued. "Every meeting, every plan, it all came back to you and your mom. How to protect you? How to provide for you? How to make sure you'd be okay?" "I know he loved us," I said. "No, you don't understand. He made me promise something else, something I've never told anyone." I waited, heart pounding. "He made me promise to watch over you, both of you, to become part of your lives if you'd let me. He said losing him would be hard, but being alone would be harder. He wanted you to have more family, not less. So all of this, becoming close to us, started as a promise, yes, but became real. You and your mom, you're my family now. Victoria's family. Not because your dad asked me to, but because I can't imagine life without you." I hugged her then. This woman who'd sacrificed so much for a stranger's dying wish. Who'd gone to prison to give us financial security. Who'd kept terrible secrets to honor a good man's last request. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything." She hugged me back, tears on both our faces. "Thank your dad. He saw all of this somehow, knew we'd need each other. Even in dying, he was taking care of everyone." That's the thing about love. Real love. It doesn't end with death. It lives on in the choices we make, the people we become, the families we create. Dad's love lived on in Mom's forgiveness, in the woman's sacrifice, in Victoria's resilience, in our strange, beautiful, complicated family. Marcus thought Dad was weak for choosing conscience over profit, but Dad understood something Marcus never did. Money is just paper. Power is just illusion. But love, sacrifice, family, that's real. That's forever. And that's what Dad gave us. Not just money to survive, not just evidence to fight back, but people to love, to trust, to build a life with. He gave us each other. In his own complicated, imperfect way, he gave us everything. The weeks after Marcus's arrest brought new challenges we hadn't anticipated. His business associates started circling like vultures, each claiming they were owed something from the dissolved company. Mom fielded calls daily from people we'd never heard of, all with stories about investments and promises Marcus had made. One morning, a woman showed up at our door with a folder of documents. She introduced herself as Marcus's ex-wife, someone Dad had mentioned only once in passing. She sat at our kitchen table, spreading out divorce papers and financial statements from years ago. Marcus hid assets during our divorce, she explained. Your father knew about it but stayed quiet. Professional courtesy, he called it. Now I want what I'm owed. Mom examined the papers carefully. The amounts were substantial, money that Marcus had shuffled through various accounts to avoid splitting during the divorce. Some of those accounts had Dad's name on them as the business partner. We don't have access to any of that, Mom told her. Everything's frozen pending the federal investigation. The ex-wife's expression hardened. Then you better find a way to unfreeze it, or I'll have to explore other options. After she left, Mom called Nathan. He came over immediately, reviewing the documents she'd left behind. His face grew increasingly worried as he read. This is legitimate, he said finally. If she pushes this, you could be held liable as Robert's estate. The amounts here, it could wipe out everything. I felt my stomach drop. After everything we'd been through, we might lose it all anyway. Mom sat quietly, processing this new threat. The woman and Victoria arrived for dinner as planned. We told them about Marcus's ex-wife, the potential liability. The woman immediately offered to help however she could, but we all knew her resources were limited. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went through Dad's files again looking for anything about Marcus's divorce. In a folder marked personal, I found correspondence between Dad and Marcus from that time. Dad had known about the hidden assets but had been conflicted about what to do. One email stood out. Dad had written to Marcus, "This isn't right. She deserves her fair share. If you don't make this right, I will." Marcus's response was threatening, reminding Dad of their partnership agreement, of mutual destruction if either betrayed the other. Dad had backed down, but I could sense his regret in the subsequent emails. The next morning, Mom made a decision. She called Marcus' ex-wife, invited her back to discuss a solution. When she arrived, Mom had a proposal ready. "We'll help you recover what you're owed," Mom said, "but not through the courts. That could take years and destroy everyone involved. Instead, we work together." The ex-wife was skeptical but listened. Mom explained that we had information about all of Marcus' hidden assets, not just from the divorce but from his entire career. If we combined our knowledge with what the federal investigation would uncover, we could ensure she got her fair share from the seized assets. "Why would you help me?" the ex-wife asked. "Because it's the right thing to do," Mom replied, "and because my husband would want us to." We spent the next several days working with Marcus's ex-wife, mapping out the complex web of accounts and shell companies Marcus had created. She had pieces we didn't, records from their marriage that filled in gaps. Together, we built a complete picture of Marcus's financial crimes. Nathan helped us present this information to the federal investigators. They were impressed by the thoroughness, especially the historical data about Marcus's patterns of hiding assets. It would help them recover more money for all the victims, but Marcus wasn't finished with us yet. From jail, he managed to cause more problems. His lawyer filed motions claiming we'd stolen company property, that the evidence we'd provided was obtained illegally. The accusations were baseless, but they meant more legal fees, more time in court. Mom's savings dwindled quickly. The woman offered to help with money, but Mom refused. We'd already asked too much of her. I picked up extra shifts at the bookstore, but it wasn't enough. Then Victoria had an idea. She'd been learning web design at school and offered to help Mom create a website for her real estate business. Working together, they built something professional and modern. Mom's client base, loyal despite the recent drama, spread the word. Soon, she had more listings than ever before. The woman's nursing career also recovered. The hospital, after investigating the anonymous complaints, realized they were harassment. They offered her a promotion to a supervisory position, recognition for her dedication during a difficult time. Our strange extended family grew stronger through these challenges. Marcus's ex-wife, initially hostile, became an ally. She'd been through her own version of Marcus's manipulation and understood our struggle. She even started joining our Sunday dinners occasionally. Evening, as we all sat around the expanded dining table, Nathan raised his glass to Robert, he said, who saw the best in people even when they didn't deserve it. We toasted Dad's memory, but I noticed Mom's expression. Later, when everyone had gone home, I found her in Dad's old office holding a photo from their wedding day. "I wonder if he knew it would be this hard," she said. I sat beside her. "Would it have changed anything if he did?" She smiled sadly. "No, he'd have done it anyway. That's who he was." The federal case against Marcus progressed slowly. He'd hired expensive lawyers who filed motion after motion, delaying the inevitable, but the evidence was overwhelming. His former clients testified about their losses. Nathan testified about the threats. We testified about the harassment. Marcus's mother appeared at the trial one day. She was elderly, frail, supported by a walker. She approached Mom during a recess, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I raised him better than this. His father and we don't understand how he became this person." Mom hugged her gently. "We all make choices. This wasn't your fault." The old woman pressed an envelope into Mom's hands before her aide led her away. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a note for the families Marcus hurt. "It's not much, but it's what I can do." Mom donated the money to the support group she'd started with a woman. It funded counseling sessions for families dealing with terminal illness and impossible decisions. Marcus's mother's gift helped people find peace with their choices. The trial concluded with Marcus's conviction on all counts. 12 years, as predicted, with possibility of parole in 8. His assets were liquidated, distributed among his victims. Marcus's ex-wife received her share finally. The clients he'd defrauded got partial restitution. It wasn't everything they'd lost, but it was something. After the sentencing, Marcus's lawyer approached us with one final message from his client. Marcus wanted to meet with Mom to apologize. Mom considered it for days before deciding. I went with her to the prison. Marcus looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, older. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite identify. "Helen," he said when we sat across from him in the visiting "thank you for coming." Mom waited, saying nothing. "I've had time to think," Marcus continued. "About Robert, about what he did. I hated him for it. But now, I understand. He was trying to save me from myself." "He was trying to save your victims," Mom corrected. Marcus nodded slowly. "That too. But he knew what this would lead to. Prison. Disgrace. He tried to warn me years ago. I didn't listen." "What do you want, Marcus?" Mom asked. "To apologize and to tell you something. Robert left one more account, one I didn't know about until my lawyer found it during discovery. It's in Victoria's name for her education. He set it up the week before he died." Mom's composure cracked slightly. "What? $50,000? He knew that woman would need help raising her daughter after prison. He made sure she'd have it. The account information is with my lawyer." We left the prison in silence. Mom drove while I processed this final revelation. Dad had thought of everything, planned for every contingency. Even in his final days facing death, he'd been taking care of people. Victoria cried when we told her. The woman held her daughter, both of them overwhelmed by Dad's final gift. The money would pay for college, give Victoria opportunities her mother's sacrifice had made possible. The support group Mom and the woman ran grew larger. Families came from neighboring towns, sharing their stories, finding comfort in community. Mom became known for her compassion, her ability to help people navigate impossible choices without judgment. I graduated from community college that spring. Mom, the woman, Victoria, Nathan, and even Marcus's ex-wife attended the ceremony. My chosen family, born from tragedy but bound by love. At the graduation party, Mom pulled me aside. "Your father would be so proud," she said. "Not just of the degree, but of who you've become. I learned from you," I told her, "how to forgive, how to move forward, how to find family in unexpected places." Nathan announced his retirement that summer. He'd rebuilt his practice enough to sell it properly this time. He planned to travel, to visit grandchildren he'd been too afraid to see during his years in hiding. But first, he had one more task. He'd been working with Dad's old clients, the ones who'd lost money to Marcus, helping them navigate the restitution process. Many were elderly, confused by the legal complexities. Nathan made sure each one understood their rights, received their share. One afternoon, Nathan brought an elderly man to our house. The man walked slowly, leaning on a cane, but his eyes were sharp. "I knew your father for 30 years, he told me. He managed my retirement savings. When I heard about Marcus, I thought I'd lost everything. But your father had moved my money to a protected account months before he died. He saved my retirement." The man had brought a photo album, pictures from company events over the years. Dad appeared in many of them, always smiling, always surrounded by clients who trusted him. The man pointed to one photo in particular. "This was taken the month before he died," he said. "Look at his face. He knew, didn't he? He was already protecting us." I studied the photo. Dad did look different, thinner, but determined. His arm was around Mom at a company Christmas party. They both looked happy despite everything. "Keep that one," the man said, carefully removing the photo. "Your family should have it." As our lives stabilized, we established new routines. Sunday dinners continued, but now included whoever needed family that week. Nathan before his travels. Marcus's ex-wife when loneliness struck. Dad's old clients who had no one else. Our table expanded to accommodate everyone. Victoria excelled in school, driven by the opportunities her mother's sacrifice and Dad's gift had provided. She talked about becoming a doctor, helping others the way her mother helped patients. The woman glowed with pride at her daughter's ambitions. One evening, while helping Mom clean out more of Dad's things, I found his journal from those final months. I hesitated, then showed Mom. We read it together. His thoughts and fears laid bare. He wrote about the diagnosis, the shock and anger, about discovering Marcus's theft and realizing he could use his remaining time to make things right, about finding the woman, convincing her to help, promising to take care of her family as she took care of ours. The final entry was dated 2 days before his death. "Tomorrow, I transfer the last of the stolen funds back to the clients. Marcus will discover it eventually, but it will be too late. Helen and our son will be provided for. The woman's daughter will have her chance at life. I pray they'll all forgive me for the pain I'm about to cause. Sometimes love requires terrible choices. This is mine." Mom closed the journal gently. We donated it to the support group where it became a resource for others facing similar decisions. Dad's words help people understand that love sometimes looks like betrayal, that sacrifice isn't always clean or simple. The woman and Victoria officially moved into the house 3 doors down, close enough to be family, independent enough to be themselves. Victoria and I studied together, supported each other through challenges. She became the sister I never had. Marcus's ex-wife used her settlement to start a foundation helping women discover hidden assets during divorces. She'd learned from her experience, wanted to prevent others from suffering similarly. Mom joined the board, bringing her real estate expertise. The anniversary of Dad's death arrived with unexpected peace. We gathered at his grave, our expanded family filling the small cemetery plot. Mom placed flowers while the woman lit a candle. Victoria read a poem about sacrifice and love. Nathan said a prayer. I spoke last, sharing what I'd learned. That Dad's final act wasn't just about money or justice. It was about creating connections, building family from broken pieces. He'd known we'd need each other, orchestrated not just his death but our coming together. He gave us each other, I said, looking at the faces around me. That was his greatest gift. As we walked back to our cars, Victoria took my arm. Do you think he knew, she asked, how it would all turn out? I thought about Dad's meticulous planning, his attention to detail, but also about the surprises, the unexpected bonds, the family we'd become through choice rather than blood. I think he hoped, I said, and sometimes hope is enough. The support group met that evening. Mom facilitated while the woman provided medical perspective. New faces appeared, people carrying their own impossible choices. They found what we'd found, that sharing the burden made it bearable. Marcus wrote occasionally from prison. His letters showed genuine remorse, a man finally understanding the cost of his choices. Mom answered sometimes, brief notes about forgiveness and moving forward. Even Marcus in his way was part of our story now. Life settled into new rhythms. Morning coffee with Mom before work, evening walks with Victoria and the woman, Sunday dinners with our chosen family, Nathan's postcards from his travels, small moments that added up to a life rebuilt from loss. I returned to school for my bachelor's degree inspired by the professionals who'd helped us. Social work, I decided, helping families navigate crisis. Dad's insurance money made it possible. His final investment in my future. The woman received a Nursing Excellence Award. At the ceremony, she thanked her daughter for being her motivation, Mom for showing her forgiveness, and Dad for trusting her with an impossible secret. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Our story spread quietly through the community. Not through media or fame, but through whispered conversations at the support group, shared experiences at the grocery store. We became known as the family that chose each other, that found love and loss. Marcus's mother passed away peacefully. She'd continued donating to the support group monthly, her way of atoning for her son's crimes. Her funeral was small, but Mom insisted we attend. Even in grief, we honored connections. Time softened the sharp edges of our trauma. The woman spoke more freely about that night. The weight of her secret finally lifted. Victoria understood her mother's sacrifice without bitterness. Mom found joy again, not despite Dad's deception, but because of what it created. I sometimes wondered what Dad would think of us now. His elaborate plan had worked, but not exactly as he'd imagined. We were provided for financially, yes, but more importantly, we were surrounded by love he couldn't have predicted. The federal investigators closed their final reports. Marcus's network was fully dismantled. His victims compensated as much as possible. Sam Maximantha sent a personal note thanking us for our courage. Without our evidence, she wrote, justice would have been impossible. Nathan returned from his travels renewed. He'd reconciled with family, seen the world, found peace. He joined our Sunday dinners again, sharing stories of his adventures. His courage in facing Marcus had freed him in ways we were still discovering. Victoria's college acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday. Full scholarship to the pre-med program. Her dreams within reach. The woman sobbed with joy while Victoria danced around the kitchen. Mom and I watched, knowing Dad would have been so proud. That night, I found Mom on the porch holding Dad's last letter. I used to be angry, she admitted, at the lies, the manipulation, the pain he caused, but look what grew from it. She gestured toward the woman's house where Victoria's celebration continued. At Nathan's car in the driveway, him joining the party. At the photos on our wall, our strange family documented in snapshots. He planted seeds, Mom continued. Not just of justice or financial security, but of connection. We're all here because he brought us together. I sat beside her, understanding finally complete. Dad's legacy wasn't the money he'd protected or the crimes he'd exposed. It was the family he'd created through sacrifice, the love that grew from loss. Marcus served his time quietly. Reports from prison indicated he'd become a model inmate, teaching financial literacy to other prisoners. Perhaps redemption was possible, even for him. Dad would have hoped so. Our support group expanded to 3 meetings weekly. Families drove hours to attend, finding solace in shared experience. Mom and the woman trained other facilitators, spreading their compassionate approach. Dad's final gift kept giving. I graduated with honors, immediately starting work at a family crisis center. Every day brought new challenges, families facing impossible choices. I carried Dad's lessons with me, that love takes many forms, not all of them easy to recognize. Victoria finished her first year of pre-med with straight A's. She volunteered at the hospital where her mother worked full circle from the woman who'd saved her life to the doctor she'd become. Their sacrifice transformed into purpose. 5 years after Dad's death, we held a different kind of memorial, not mourning, but celebration. Everyone whose life he'd touched gathered in our backyard. Former clients whose retirements he'd saved, families from the support group finding peace. Our chosen family bonded forever. Mom stood to speak. strong and graceful. She talked about forgiveness, about finding beauty in broken things, about a man who used his final months to right wrongs and create connections, about the love that survived deception, grew through pain, bloomed into something beautiful. Robert wasn't perfect, she concluded, but he loved perfectly. That's what remains. As the sun set over our gathering, I realized this was what Dad had really given us. Not just financial security or justice, but a web of connections that caught us when we fell. A family chosen through circumstance but maintained through love. The woman raised her glass, tears streaming, to the man who trusted me with an impossible secret, who saw my desperation and met it with compassion, who gave my daughter a future and me a family. To Dad, I added, who knew that sometimes the greatest gift is bringing people together. We toasted under the stars, our voices joining in remembrance and gratitude. Somewhere, I believe Dad was watching, finally at peace. His plan had worked, though not as he'd imagined. We were more than okay. We were family, but the next morning brought new challenges, as every morning did. But we faced them together, supported by the bonds Dad had forged through sacrifice. His love lived on in every choice we made, every connection we nurtured, every family we helped through crisis. This was his true legacy. That love multiplies when shared. That family isn't just blood, but choice. That even death can't stop someone determined to protect those they love. Dad had given us everything that mattered, each other.